Men, listen closely. If a woman doesn't respect you, nothing else matters. Not your love, not your effort, not your intentions. Respect is the foundation of every healthy relationship. Without it, you're just a placeholder in her life, not a priority. If she's talking down to you, disrespecting your time, belittling your goals, or subtly testing your masculinity, and you choose to stay silent, you're not being calm or composed. You're being complicit. A lot of men confuse Stoicism with passivity, but true Stoicism is not about tolerating nonsense. It's about recognizing when your principles are being violated and responding with decisive, deliberate action. Setting boundaries isn't about creating conflict. It's about defining what is and isn't acceptable in your world. If a woman constantly cancels plans, interrupts you when you speak, mocks your beliefs, or ignores your efforts, and you continue to engage like everything is fine, then you've silently told her that disrespect is allowed. That it's part of the package. Every relationship is built on a silent agreement, one that's reinforced by actions, not words. When you allow bad behavior to slide once, it sets the precedent. She now knows you won't stand up for yourself. That's dangerous because disrespect, once accepted, doesn't stay the same. It grows, it escalates, it evolves into control, manipulation, and emotional dominance. That's how men lose themselves in relationships, not overnight, but slowly, through 1,000 little compromises. When you set boundaries, you teach others how to treat you. And yes, some people will test them. That's expected. But the moment you enforce those boundaries by calmly withdrawing, by not rewarding disrespect, by speaking your truth without fear of losing someone, you elevate yourself. You show that your peace, your time, your self-respect come first. A man who honors himself creates a standard that others must meet, and if they can't, they simply don't belong in his life. Setting boundaries is the first and most important filter that protects you from disrespect and preserves your value. When you find yourself constantly explaining who you are, why you said something, or what your intentions were, you've already placed yourself in a defensive position. And the more you do it, the more you chip away at your own masculine authority. See, a man who knows his worth doesn't feel the need to convince anyone of it, especially not a woman who is already choosing to misunderstand, criticize, or challenge him. There's a huge difference between healthy communication and over-explaining. One is about clarity, the other is about insecurity. And when you keep trying to validate yourself to someone who's being dismissive or disrespectful, you're feeding a dynamic where your value is constantly questioned, and that puts her in control. Women are incredibly perceptive. When you keep justifying your decisions, apologizing for your standards, or giving long emotional monologues about how you feel, she senses weakness. Not emotional openness, weakness, because you're not standing firm in your truth. You're bending, you're seeking approval, and approval, seeking kills respect. It doesn't matter how noble your intentions are. If you allow someone to constantly challenge your leadership or mock your direction, and you feel the need to explain yourself every time, she will see you as a man who can be shaken, swayed, and manipulated. A strong man knows when to speak, and more importantly, when not to. He knows his choices are rooted in self-respect, logic, and intention. He doesn't explain his silence, his decisions, or his standards. He simply lives them, and if a woman respects him, she won't need constant explanations. She'll feel his certainty. She'll recognize that his energy isn't up for negotiation. When you stop explaining yourself, you reclaim your frame. You stop trying to be understood by someone who isn't trying to understand you in the first place. You begin to live with clarity instead of permission, and in doing that, you separate yourself from the endless cycle of validation that so many men get trapped in. Too many men make the fatal mistake of rewarding bad behavior with more attention. A woman disrespects them, gives them attitude, pulls away emotionally, or starts playing games, and instead of stepping back and protecting their dignity, they chase harder. They text more. They try to prove themselves. They plead for communication. What they don't realize is that every time they do this, they're reinforcing a pattern. She learns that no matter how she treats you, you'll still be there, still available, still eager to please, and once she knows that, the respect she had for you, if any, begins to die. Respect isn't kept through begging, proving, or pleasing. It's maintained through consistency, self-discipline, and emotional restraint. When a woman disrespects you, the last thing you should do is lean in. You should lean out, not out of spite or as a manipulative tactic, but because it's the natural consequence of her behavior. Just like in any other area of life, if someone crosses a line, they lose access. Period. When you reward disrespect with validation, you send the message that you don't respect yourself, that you're more afraid of losing her than losing your dignity, and nothing kills attraction faster than a man who chooses desperation over self-worth. You have to understand that women often test men to measure their strength, their backbone, their emotional stability. They may not even do it consciously, but it happens, and how you respond says everything about who you are. If you ignore the test, or worse, if you respond with neediness, you fail. But if you stand firm, remain calm, and remove your presence the moment she crosses a line, you pass. You show her that your time, your energy, your attention are not cheap, that they are earned, not owed. Rewarding disrespect is like feeding a fire and expecting it to burn out. It won't. It'll consume more and more of your peace, your pride, your purpose. The key is to become emotionally disciplined enough to detach when necessary. Not out of anger, but out of principle. Your respect for yourself must always be stronger than your desire for her approval. Because once a woman sees that you'll stick around no matter how she treats you, she stops valuing you. And once that value is lost, it's nearly impossible to get it back. Emotional detachment doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you stop letting your emotions control your decisions, your behavior, and your self-worth, especially in situations where someone is trying to provoke or manipulate you. When a woman disrespects you, pulls away, insults you, or plays emotional games, your initial reaction might be to get angry, to confront her, to try and fix things immediately. That reaction is exactly what she expects, and often it's exactly what she wants. Because when she can control your emotional state, she controls you. And a man who's emotionally reactive is a man who can be easily disrespected, manipulated, and discarded. Mastering emotional detachment means learning to observe without reacting. To feel the emotion rise, the anger, the frustration, the confusion, and to let it pass without letting it dictate your next move. It means you no longer allow someone else's behavior to determine your mood or your sense of self. You recognize that her opinion, her actions, even her presence, do not define your worth as a man. You are grounded in something deeper: your purpose, your principles, your discipline. This doesn't mean you become cold or numb. On the contrary, it means you become precise, strategic, intentional. When she tries to push your buttons and you stay calm, she realizes she can't shake your frame. When she gives you the silent treatment and you don't chase, she realizes you're not dependent on her attention. When she tries to make you jealous and you remain unbothered, she sees that her tactics don't work on a man who has mastered himself. That's real power, and it's rare. Most men operate from a place of emotional impulse. They let fear, lust, or ego control them. But a stoic man, a man who has mastered emotional detachment, can walk through chaos with clarity. He doesn't panic. He doesn't beg. He doesn't try to force outcomes. He simply observes, evaluates, and acts from a place of control. That control is what keeps you from being pulled into toxic dynamics. It's what protects your peace, and it's what allows you to maintain your dignity even when someone else is trying to strip it away. Emotional detachment also allows you to make decisions based on reality, not fantasy, instead of holding on to the hope that she'll change, that she'll see your worth, that things will go back to how they used to be. You see things for what they are. You stop trying to fix someone who doesn't want to be fixed. You stop trying to convince someone to respect you. You simply withdraw your energy and move in silence, because your emotions are no longer driving the car, your standards are. Walking away without warning is one of the most powerful moves a man can make when he's been disrespected, not because it's meant to hurt the other person, but because it's a clear, undeniable statement of self-respect. Too often, men feel the need to explain why they're leaving. They write long messages, get into emotional arguments, or try to make the other person understand how much they've been hurt. But the truth is, when someone truly doesn't respect you, they're not listening. They're not hearing your words. They're watching your behavior, and nothing speaks louder than your complete absence. When you disappear without warning, without drama, and without bitterness, it disrupts everything. It forces the other person to sit with the reality of what they've done. It creates a vacuum that can't be filled with excuses or blame shifting. It's a reminder that your time, your presence, and your energy were never guaranteed, and once taken for granted, they can be gone without notice. That kind of exit isn't emotional. It's surgical. It's precise. It comes from a place of strength, not weakness, because the man who can walk away without closure is the man who doesn't need it. See, when you give warnings, threats, or constant reminders of what you're about to do, you dilute your power. You give her time to manipulate the situation, to shift the blame, to try to reel you back in just enough to keep you from leaving completely, and then the cycle continues. But when you leave without a signal, you break the pattern. You remove the emotional safety net. You make it clear that you're not a man who needs to be convinced to stay where he's not valued. This doesn't mean you act impulsively. On the contrary, this move is the result of deep awareness. You've already observed the patterns. You've already expressed your standards. You've already given enough of your energy, your time, your chances. And when the disrespect continues, you don't argue anymore. You act quietly, decisively, without asking for permission or validation. It's not about making a scene or proving a point. It's about returning to yourself. Walking away in silence also reveals who truly respects you and who only valued your presence when they could control it. It exposes how shallow or deep the connection really was. Because people who care will feel your absence, not because you told them how much you were hurt, but because they realize what they lost when they can no longer feel your presence. The strength of a man isn't measured by how loudly he leaves, it's measured by how confidently he disappears when his standards are no longer being honored. And the best part, you walk away with your dignity intact. You don't chase, You don't explain, you don't look back. You simply remove yourself and let your silence echo where your words were once ignored. That is not weakness, it's ultimate self-control. And in a world full of men who beg for attention, the man who walks away without a word stands out as a force that cannot be ignored or forgotten. If you continue to tolerate disrespect, it's not just about what the woman is doing, it's about what you believe you deserve. At the core of every interaction is your mindset. If you see yourself as average, replaceable, or unworthy of high standards, you will naturally attract people who reinforce that belief. And when they mistreat you, you'll find ways to rationalize it. You'll convince yourself it's normal, that she's just going through something, or that if you love her enough, she'll change. But the truth is, what you tolerate reveals how you truly see yourself. That's why upgrading your mindset is critical. It resets your internal standard, and everything around you starts to shift in response. You can't keep surrounding yourself with low-value people and expect to become high-value. If you spend your time with those who drain your energy, mock your ambition, or feed your insecurities, you will remain stuck in environments that punish your growth. The moment you start building a circle of strong, purpose-driven men who hold themselves to a higher code, your perspective changes. You begin to realize that respect, loyalty, and accountability are not rare. They're just rare in the wrong circles. You start to see how much you were settling, how much you were shrinking just to maintain relationships that never deserved your presence in the first place. Improving your mindset means taking full ownership of your life. No more blaming others for how they treat you. No more waiting for someone else to recognize your value. You become the one who sets the tone. That means investing in your physical health, your financial discipline, your mental clarity, your spiritual foundation. You read more, you train harder, you cut off distractions. You learn how to say no, not out of arrogance, but out of alignment with your higher self. The more you grow, the less tolerance you have for anything that compromises your peace, your purpose, or your principles. As you upgrade your mind, something else happens. Your energy changes. You stop chasing. You stop explaining. You stop needing validation. People begin to feel it without you saying a word. Women who once tried to test your boundaries start to sense they can't play those games with you. Not because you're aggressive or defensive, but because you carry yourself with a quiet, undeniable strength. You radiate self-respect. You command better treatment without having to demand it. Ultimately, the way to handle women who don't respect you isn't just about dealing with them, it's about elevating yourself to a level where their disrespect can't reach you. When you operate from a mindset of abundance, when you know who you are, what you bring, and what you will never tolerate, you stop fearing the loss of people who were never aligned with your vision. You begin to see disrespect not as a personal attack, but as a filter, a signal showing you who isn't worthy of your presence. And when you're focused on growth, purpose, and surrounding yourself with those who match your energy, your life becomes a reflection of the standards you've committed to internally. That's the real transformation. That's when you stop surviving disrespect and start living in a world where it can't even get close to you. In the end, the power to handle disrespect lies within you. It's not about the games they play or the way they try to manipulate you. It's about how you see yourself, how you value your time, and how you protect your peace. When you set clear boundaries, stop explaining, refuse to reward bad behavior, detach emotionally, walk away without warning, and upgrade your mindset, you put yourself in a position of strength. You no longer need to chase respect because you command it, and anyone who cannot meet your standards simply doesn't belong in your life. Stay true to yourself, and remember, the more you respect yourself, the more the world will follow suit.